How powerful is Cox Internet? Powerful enough to let your band members in Vegas, Phoenix, and Rhode Island jam like you're all in the same garage. Get Cox Internet powered by fiber with America's fastest download speeds. It's internet built for tomorrow, today. Cox, always building better. Cox Internet is connected to the premises via coaxial connection. Speeds vary and are not guaranteed. Cox terms and other restrictions may apply. Analysis by Ookla Speed Test Intelligence Data. Fixed median download speeds. US Q3 2023.
The South Dakota Stories, Volume 5. South Dakota seemed like the perfect place to unplug. But I ended up connecting to the world around me. A world where each sunset was painted, where I felt adventure's pulse with every step, and where cold water trickling, pine swaying, and grunting bison became my favorite soundtracks. I just wish I didn't have to leave. There's so much South Dakota, so little time.
Hi, it's Scary Jones. Taking care of communities. That's always been the priority at Empire. Now that they're Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, their commitment remains the same. They continue to partner with local and national organizations to improve the health of New Yorkers. In Brooklyn, Anthem teamed up with the Liberty to provide nutritious food to families and support to women-owned small businesses. Learn more at anthem.com/NYLiberty. Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield is the trade name of Anthem Health Choice Assurance, Inc.
With AT&T in-car Wi-Fi, stay connected wherever you go and transform your vehicle into a dependable Wi-Fi hotspot. Powering applications like real-time GPS and voice assistant, navigation becomes a breeze. Even on the practice field, AT&T in-car Wi-Fi keeps you connected while in proximity of your vehicle. Work, stream shows, or finish homework without missing a beat. See if you're eligible for a free trial at att.com/in-car Wi-Fi. Don't let connectivity be a roadblock in your journey. Always pay careful attention to the road and don't drive distracted. Wi-Fi hotspot intended for passenger use when vehicle is in operation. Compatible device and vehicle required.
Welcome into an all-new episode of Her Playbook. I'm Madelyn Burke, and I am thrilled to be joined by Good Morning Football host Jamie Erdahl. You can see her on Good Morning Football bright and early, Monday through Friday on NFL Network, as well as catch her on CBS, on Sidelines. Out here at the Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. This girl never stops working. How are you? Thank you for taking the time.
I'm so good. Thank you for having me on. It's so good to see you. I feel like a real human operating between the hours of 8 a.m. and we're talking midday here. It's like, wow, so this is really when things are going because, yeah, GMFB, we roll early.
It is very early. A 7 a.m. start right there. You guys are up early. You know, this is your second season on GMFB. I know when you first took that job, you mentioned how this is kind of a different path for your career. It was kind of a fork in the road because you had been doing Sidelines so much, so well. You had been doing a lot of that with college, with football and basketball, but doing a studio hosting show was a pivot for you. How has that been now that you're 2 years into that?
So ironic that you asked the question that way because we just got done hearing from the prospects at the Combine, and there was this one running back in particular who you look at his sheet, and he had been like 4 years at a certain college as a wide receiver, and then someone moved him to running back, and now he's at the NFL Scouting Combine with running back 4 or whatever on a sweatshirt, and it just made me think, like, I wonder who planted that seed to convince him that he had to make a change in order to get from a position style, in order to get to the NFL or get to the Scouting Combine. And it's very much what I felt in being a sideline reporter or reporter for CBS was I could have stood on a corner in 57th Street and 11th Avenue in New York City and had a poster that said, I'm a studio host for every day of my life. But I think when you begin your career, and I had done it for 8 to 10 years between the NFL and the SEC, you know, rightfully so, CBS is like, you're a sideline reporter. This is how this is what it is and what your role is. And I just felt in my gut and in my heart that I had to make a change to really flex a muscle, learn a new muscle, the studio hosting muscle, and show CBS, show everybody that, like, this is something I want to do, that I can do, but you're not going to be able to do it until you put the work in. And so, you know, 3 hours a day, 15 hours a week together, second NFL season on the show. I've learned so much from the guys that I'm with every day, just from the TV perspective, the business of it. But yeah, I felt like I had to make a major change just to kind of say, to rebrand myself as a host.
Right. Well, and you mentioned 3 hours a day, 15 hours a week. That's just when you're on air.
Yes.
That's just the time that you're on air. There's a lot of preparation that goes into that show.
Yeah.
It's a heavy lift. And, you know, when you're talking about NFL football, especially during the season, you've got Monday night games, Thursday night games, Sunday night games. I don't know how early your alarm clock goes off, but I'd imagine it's a short turnaround from that. What is your secret to preparation for a show like that?
I do what I like to call a split shift. So I have 2 little kids at home. You know, they really get the bulk of me in the middle of the day, or I try to give them my best self in the middle of the day. But football gets me in the morning, and then it gets me closer, at night. So it's not your traditional 9 to 5. Sports TV never is your traditional 9 to 5, so you have to be okay with that. But I give it up. I give it my all from when I wake up at 4:30 until the show's done at 10, and then a little bit of unwind after that. Maybe an hour recap of just what we just did, and looking ahead to the next day and the next and the week unfolding. And then at night, I really hit it, 6 to 9 at night, and just like do the prep for the next day. Mm-hmm. But the beautiful thing about the football season, and this, just content-wise, how much things snowball. Right. All of a sudden your recall from things that happened in week 2 and it's week 11, and you're able to just, it really fires off the tongue a lot faster, just like the deeper you get into the season.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned how, earlier in your career, CBS looked at you and said, you're a sideline reporter. Mm-hmm. And I don't not see why, because I've seen you on the sideline, and I got to say, you are so good at that. And I've long admired that skill of yours. I've seen you, over the years doing NCAA tournaments, doing college football sidelines, and even now sometimes during the NFL season, you'll do the international games and whatnot. It's such a specific skill, and it's such a hard job. And sometimes people will look at it like, oh, well, what's the sideline reporter got to say? But there's a lot that goes into it. Mm-hmm. You're running around, you're gathering information, you got to file away a lot of things, you got to have relationships. Mm-hmm. And to do it and do it well is a feat. How would you describe what that job takes?
Okay, so early on in my career, I don't know who it was. I should really think long and hard about this. Someone told me just stop referencing the stats, the numbers. It's not my job. That's not where I should be living in that realm. Also, when I talk to you, when I talk to a coach or an athlete, you rattling off the fact that this guy had 95 catches over 16 games, it's like that you lose someone when you start to say numbers at them. If you watch their eyes, it's so basic, but it has to be about good storytelling. And that's, people hear that all the time, but the way I like to explain it is, when I would go to dinner with my CBS crew, my first crew in the NFL, I worked with Greg Gumbel and Trent Green. My SEC crew, I worked with Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson. My favorite thing to do is ever go to a crew dinner, because I love when Gary or Trent would Greg Gumbel, they start telling these stories. And you're like, I just get drunk on the stories. So I'm like, tell me more. I want more of this. So I took that into my role on the game. You want to tell this compelling story as if you're sitting at a dinner, and you got to tell a story that makes Gary Danielson or Trent Green want to hear it from you and respond to it appropriately. If you create this nice, well-packaged, scripted, numbers-based, factual report, that's information and that's good, but it's not compelling, and it's not going to stick in people's head.
Right.
So my goal specifically when I am sideline reporting is always say something that the guys in the booth have to respond to.
Yeah.
That they feel compelled to say, what do you mean? Almost make them want to follow up with you. More airtime, more time to tell your story. But it makes me just think quickly back to December. I was in this building for a Colts game, and I told a Gardner Minshew story about how he was living in a van in the off season in Naples, and he plays pickleball against older ladies. And we had a 2nd and 8 and a run play, and Rich Eisen's talking to Kurt Warner, and Kurt's like, I'm sorry, Rich, I'm still thinking about how Gardner was living in a van in the off season. It was just so perfect, and it just made me so proud. I was like, I told the story the right way, and that's how I always kind of thought of it.
Yeah, if you've got the guys in the booth still thinking about it, the viewers are engaged as well. And it's such a hard thing, but not just those moments as well, but you've covered a lot of NCAA tournaments.
Yep.
Those are some emotional finishes. Yes. Some things change so quickly on a dime. Grabbing somebody after a game like that, a win like that, and doing an interview in that environment and asking the right questions and being prepared. What goes into that?
Well, specifically when it comes to college basketball, there's so much emotion behind it. And the really great memories and the moments, I think, are teams that you didn't expect to be there. FDU beating Purdue last year. That coach, there's that image of me with my arm, gripping that coach. For a brief second, I think people were kind of like, whoa, she got a hold of that coach, a lot. He was kind of, stumbling on his feet a little bit. Like just the entire moment, his watching his players celebrate, realizing what he just did. He needed someone to hold on to him for a second and just get us going.
Grounded a little bit.
Secondly, in those moments, I think it's not about your voice. It's not about the amount of words you use. It's get to the point of what you want to hear. And even if it's as simple as, I love reading people's faces and even just saying, you're crying or you're emotional, why? It makes them answer the question. There has to be a why behind that. And it's a simple observation, but just getting into, if you take too long, their emotion evaporates, really. And so then you can't circle back to the why. If you make them go on a technicality of the X's and the O's and you were in that timeout and tell me what happened, if your next question is about the emotion's gone because you made them go on the technicality. So I just love keeping it so simple. I had an interview once with Nick Saban at halftime, I think, of an Iron Bowl game, and Alabama was down like 10-0 or 10-3. It was brutal. And all I asked him was like, Coach, what's the problem? Because I could not come up with, is it an offensive line issue? I couldn't say, like, you have negative 10 rushing yards, anything. There were so many problems, so I just asked him, Coach, what's the problem? And he looked at me, and he just went on this beautiful rant, and then that was it. He went on his way, and I was like, great. I mean, you're the expert. Tell me what the problem is.
Exactly. Like, I'm not trying to impress you guys.
Yes.
That is so true, and that's such a good approach. I know basketball has been one of your favorite sports. You played basketball in college at St. Olaf in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Covering the NFL now and covering football. How much has that changed? Is basketball still your favorite sport? Has NFL won you over? Where's the heart lie now?
It's hard to not have football have won me over just because the sheer amount of hours I put into it now. It's almost like basketball has become my guilty pleasure. Yeah. Football is work. Football is the business. I love watching the games, but I always know when I watch, whether it be games or shows or, content that people are producing, it's like there is a part of it that it's like part of my work and it's part of my career. Basketball, it's like, it's on. I hear the sneakers squeaking and it's an upset. Oh, this is an unranked team and they're up 5 with under 4 to play. Like, you just, I can't help but watch it. And so splitting that dedication when I was at CBS used to be kind of a heartbreak. Mid-December, late December would roll around and football would wrap up and then you just jump right into basketball and that was the business. But now it's almost like, because the NFL goes so long and then I get to still be a part of March Madness is such a blessing. But I love playing basketball still. So that probably still for me. I'm not trying to get out there and like play in a 7-on-7 league or anything like that. I'm not trying to play flag. Like I'll play pickup basketball every night.
Do you have a hoop in the driveway?
We did put a hoop in the driveway when we moved to New Jersey. We did, yes. Well, my little girls are 4 and 2, so they're not quite. The dribbling is just coming into effect. The hand-eye, we're still working on it. But if I have anything to say about it, then we'll definitely be. We got to lower the hoop a little bit right now, but we'll get there.
I mean, I get that the 4 and 2-year-old not quite coming out with that smooth handle.
No. But you see these kids now with these YouTube videos and everything. I'm like, how did you get your kid to be like that? My girls, So we'll get there. But my husband played soccer and football, and so he's like trying to get. We're like having a parental pathway issue right now. I'm like, let's just try to get him to do everything.
All the sports.
Yes.
Now, you grew up in Minnesota. You went to school in Minnesota. You lived in Minnesota when you started your career. Mm-hmm. Moved to New Jersey for this job with Good Morning Football. That's a rarity, especially in the world of journalism and sports journalism, broadcast as a whole, to be able to, born and raised and stay in the same place. Mm-hmm. How special was that time for you, and how hard was that decision to make to leave that behind?
Very hard to leave Minnesota behind. My husband being from there as well. That being said, there was, speaking of the crossroads, professionally, just reporter, host, there's a lot of travel that comes along with the freedom to live where you want to live. Mm-hmm. So CBS says, you're on the NFL sideline, you're on the SEC sideline. We don't care where you live, just be able to get to an airport. That's all well and good, but you start having kids and the kids want to see you and they don't want you leaving for 17 weekends in a row. And there came a moment where I was able to have a very real conversation with my husband, who luckily his company's based in New Jersey. I said to him, listen, this is going to suck, but we could rip off a Band-Aid here and leave Minnesota, a place that we love and we loved growing up. but it means that we get to stay together as a family unit a lot more frequently. And it was a no-brainer at that point. I mean, flying here to Indy even, I was like, man, I can't believe I used to do this every weekend with the carry-on and the lugging and the midnight landing and everything. You do it because you don't know any better, but now that I've kind of been off the road and focused so much on the 3 hours a day, and the sacrifice that it took to leave home we're both like very okay with it. Yeah. That being said, having grown up in Minnesota and living there, I never really did a lot of Minnesota sports coverage in my career. So I was very lucky. My first TV job was out in Boston, and then for me to go back to Minnesota, but it was working for CBS. So the time I moved back to Minnesota, it was on the road for 49ers games, for whatever. So I was able to stay a fan, really, of Minnesota sports, which I really enjoyed. Would have loved a little bit more cheering when I was there. But I liked being able to, the separation of church and state there a little bit.
Which is fair, yeah, because it doesn't, muddy the water a little bit. You don't want to see how the sausage is made all the time.
The occasional Vikings game I really loved. There'd be a little article in the newspaper about this local girl on the like I had a London game and the Vikings were in it. Like that was really awesome. Yeah. But I never had to be like at training camp in the scrum with the Vikings, and like having been a kid growing up as a fan, like I appreciate being able to still just like love the team for who they are.
Yeah, nice to get an occasional hat tip in the Star Tribune.
The Star Tribune, exactly.
But you talk about balancing family and travel and all that. You're expecting your third daughter.
Yes.
Now you had a great announcement around Halloween. NFL Network on Good Morning Football. They all dress up on Halloween if you haven't seen it, and you did Rihanna.
Yep.
Pregnancy announcement and all for both of you, which well done. But I bring this up to say that a lot of women, when they're pursuing their dreams professionally, feel like they have to take a choice of like, am I going to pursue my career path? Am I going to pursue my family path? You have done both simultaneously and are doing both simultaneously as we speak. Describe, number one, how hard that's been, but number two, how you've been able to manage and navigate that.
I don't take no for an answer very easily. I do have Minnesota nice in my personality, but that doesn't really make me like amiable to certain situations. I put that into what I've done with my, rearing children and doing the jobs that I've had. I just try so hard until the universe tells me like it's enough. You can't do it this way. I think that's what happened with Good Morning Football. I think. Sure, I could have kept doing the sideline reporting thing. Tracy Wolfson has 3 kids, and she has been on the road her entirety. I know she had her first couple when she was on the SEC, or maybe she had all 3 when she's on the SEC. And now we still see her doing Super Bowl. She has been traveling, and she raised her kids. And I applaud her so much for doing that all through that era. Mm-hmm. It was just very hard for me to leave them every weekend. And so when this opportunity came up, I was like, I think this is the universe telling me that you've kind of hit your wall in terms of how hard this has been on your family dynamic, and you're allowed to go this other pathway and pursue something, and it allows family life to be a little bit easier. Like I mentioned, the sacrifice before of leaving Minnesota, but it was so well worth it. So I just try everything until someone or something tells me take a beat. Yeah. So I flew here yesterday. I'm 35 weeks pregnant. I was like, we're just going to check the blood pressure. We're going to talk to the doctor. We're good to get on the plane, right? Yeah. And then off I went. And if I can get in and out of Indy without having this kid, then we're good. Yeah, please. So, although there's plenty of medical staff around here, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anywhere that it's going to happen, this is not
right. Right. You guys got something back there? I could check out what's going on in here. What's up, Howard? I keep going until I'm told to stop or do it differently. And I think that's just kind of always. That's how I crafted my style of sideline reporting. That's how I crafted the relationship that I was in with the person I ended up marrying. That's how we decide to parent and live and move and do this life together. Yeah. Is just keep trying. If you really want it, which I've always really wanted to be able to do it, you are going to be able, you have to fight for the dynamic that you want to set up in your life. And I feel like I've done that.
Right. Absolutely. And you have now your third girl on the way.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about the example that you're setting for your daughters of like, hey, you can have it all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I try to show them that I say, mom's got to go to work just as frequently as dad has to go to work, and that's an equal balance. And on the flip side of that, dad gets your time just as much as mom gets your time. And there was an era, I think, for women in general, not just in sports, where that was not a dynamic that existed, that it really was just so much was on the mom, and there was so much sacrifice there. And I really am so lucky to live in a world now where the expectation is balancing out more. And that I found a husband who's just like, he's always said that to me, like, you do you, whatever, we'll figure it out. We'll always figure it out. I think a couple times he has regretted saying that to me, because even the Good Morning Football thing, I said, wow, this, Kay Adams is leaving the show, and I might be able to get that job. What do you think? He's like, go for it. And I think after a couple weeks, he's like, oh God, you might get this job. Yeah.
He's like, well, I said that.
I said, go for it, but like
I'm sorry, you're shooting a half-court shot. I didn't think it was a
exactly. So
driving
right. He might regret that sentiment now, but I just want to show them that if you just keep a good head about you and a good heart, and you treat people kindly, and you just work hard, and you like what you're doing, that nothing is ever that difficult. And you just I like going to work in the morning, and I pick them up, and they're happy, and I'm happy being around them. And just that example, the daily, it's okay to do hard things. And trust me, doing Good Morning Football is hard. Being a parent to small people is hard too.
Yes.
So
you've got multiple hard jobs that you are doing right now. When you look back at your career early on and look at where you are right now, what is one thing that you learned over the years that you wish you could have known earlier, or that you would like to impart on, younger girls and women who might want to follow in your path?
Oh, I think today, you and I were around. Women are still outnumbered in an event like this at the NFL Combine when it comes to media representation in football. And I used to be so scared to walk into a media contingency and ask my question, my one question, and think about it and overthink about it, and then you might stumble on it, and then it doesn't come out right, and then you regret doing that. Think about all the time you just wasted thinking about what you were supposed to say and how it was supposed to come out. You probably didn't even listen to the answer of the person that you asked the question to. No one else cares. And I'm going to make this like a guy-girl thing, but the other guys, the other 50 dudes who are standing around you, they don't care about your question. They care about theirs. So just ask your stuff. Get in there. Elbow in there. They're all standing next to each other. There's no reason why you can't be standing in there. They don't care if you ask 3 questions. They've asked 6. It don't focus so much on what's coming out. It's you belong there. You are credentialed to be there, just as the men that are there. And no one should ever make you feel like you're taking up their time. That's your job, to be there. And if you want to do it, then go out and do it and feel comfortable being in that environment. Now, it takes practice being in that environment. I think I remember the first Minnesota Gophers men's basketball press conference I ever went to, and I shaking, having to ask Tubby Smith a question, and my hands are sweating. But I remember that feeling, and now I'm here, taking up someone else's time from the Dallas Morning News or something, and that's okay. And it takes practice, but I think you just have to have strength and confidence and the fact that you belong in the room.
Yeah, it does take some time to learn that it's okay to take up space a little bit.
Yes.
But like you said, sometimes people are going to ask questions that, why'd they ask? We heard a guy ask everyone if they believe birds are real today.
Yes,
so
we
if
did.
they can ask that, you can ask your question.
Exactly. Wow, that person has confidence to do that, so I should ask mine about my legitimate football question.
Exactly. And
room
even
for
if,
everyone.
there's room for everyone at these events. We love to see it. Jamie Erdahl, it has been such a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I love watching your coverage of the Giants. Sean O'Hara, you have to put up with him, as do I, so at least we have that in common. Sean, we love you.
Shout out to 60 Cent. It's been another edition of Her Playbook. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Hi, it's Scary Jones. Taking care of communities. That's always been the priority at Empire. Now that they're Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, their commitment remains the same. They continue to partner with local and national organizations to improve the health of New Yorkers. In Brooklyn, Anthem teamed up with the Liberty to provide nutritious food to families and support to women-owned small businesses. Learn more at anthem.com/NYLiberty. Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield is the trade name of Anthem Health Choice Assurance, Inc.
Introducing the Lisa Chill Collection, your answer to hot nights. These mattresses beat the heat with ultra-cool covers, whisking away heat for the perfect sleep temperature. Save up to $460 on Chill mattresses and get 2 free pillows when you shop now. iHeart listeners can save an extra $50 off by visiting lisa.com/iHeart. That's LEESA.com/iHeart. Exclusions apply. See lisa.com for more details.
The South Dakota Stories, Volume 5. South Dakota seemed like the perfect place to unplug. But I ended up connecting to the world around me. A world where each sunset was painted, where I felt adventure's pulse with every step, and where cold water trickling, pine swaying, and grunting bison became my favorite soundtracks. I just wish I didn't have to leave. There's so much South Dakota, so little time.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.